The sun overhead blazed brightly, bathing the racetrack in warmth and excitement. The crowd buzzed with anticipation as horses thundered down the track, hooves pounding the earth in a rhythmic symphony. Jake Collins stood at the rail, heart swelling with pride as he cheered for Midnight, the horse he had trained since birth. To Jake, Midnight was more than just a racer. He represented all the dreams and hopes Jake had nurtured throughout his life. Yet, in the midst of the cheers, unease churned in Jake's stomach. Something felt wrong, a shadow creeping over the bright day. He narrowed his eyes as Midnight charged forward. But then, everything shifted. The world around Jake seemed to slow as Midnight stumbled, his powerful legs collapsing beneath him. Gasps echoed through the crowd, raw shock punctuating the festive atmosphere. "Get back! Clear the area!" Tommy Wade's voice cut through the chaos like a knife, urgent and commanding. But Jake couldn't move. He was frozen in place, panic clenching his throat as he watched his beloved horse fall. Instinct took over. Jake sprinted towards Midnight, dropping to his knees in the dirt, cradling Midnight's head in his trembling arms. "Please, hold on, boy. Just hold on," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath, as he brushed Midnight's sweat-soaked mane. Minutes later, Clara Johnson appeared, urgency etched on her face. She quickly knelt beside them and began examining the injury. "We need to get him to the clinic," she said sharply, yet her voice held a soft understanding. Jake's heart raced, uncertainty wrapping around him like a vice. Tommy loomed above with a frown, urgency and impatience mingling in the air. "We don't have time for this, Jake. Midnight's injured badly. It's time to make the tough call," he insisted. "No, he's Midnight," Jake shot back, feeling anger and fear collide within him. The judgment of the town thrummed in his ears, echoing unkindly from memories of his father's tough love. What if Midnight didn't survive? Would it be yet another failure, another disappointment? "Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones," Tommy said, his words penetrating Jake's resolve. Jake's heart sank under the weight of those words. His mind flashed to his father's face, lined with disapproval. The memories were sharp and stinging. Doubt flooded him. Clara's gentle eyes met his, igniting a flicker of hope. "We can't give up without a fight, Jake. We owe that to him." Just then, Jake's phone buzzed, a call from the vet. With shaking hands, he answered, the clinical voice on the other end filling him with dread. "Jake, it's serious. You might need to prepare for some difficult decisions." As the weight of the conversation settled heavily over him, Jake knelt beside Midnight, their eyes locking. In that moment, Jake felt the surge of defiance rising within him, fueled by an unshakable bond. "We will fight for you, Midnight. I promise," he vowed, determination hardening in his chest. Amidst the chaos, Jake clung to that flicker of hope, the promise of a race yet to be won. The memory unfolded like a sun-kissed summer afternoon, bringing with it the sweet scent of hay and the gentle whinnies of horses. Young Jake Collins stood in the middle of the barn, his fingers tracing the wooden beams while he watched his father, a stern figure in the world of horse training, work with a young colt. Each command was laced with authority, precision, and an unwavering expectation for excellence. "Easy, boy," his father called out, adjusting the reins with rough hands. "You've got to be better than that." Jake's heart raced with admiration, but a quiet anxiety simmered beneath the surface. Every day was a test, and love felt conditional, tethered to performance. He glanced at Midnight, a spunky foal even then, tumbling half-heartedly against the wooden stall as he attempted to play. In that moment, he felt an unmistakable bond with the young horse, a shared dream unspoiled by the weight of expectation. Days turned into seasons, and as Jake grew, so did his bond with Midnight. The pair shared countless moments, whispered secrets in the barn, runs along sunlit trails, and the intoxicating thrill of competition. Memories spun like dust in the air. They were every bit the champions, reveling in joy and possibilities. Yet there were darker days too. One afternoon, after returning from a disappointing race where Midnight had faltered, Jake found himself standing in the stables, dread pooling in his gut. His father, backlit by the dim light of the barn, loomed above him with that unmistakable harshness in his gaze. "What were you thinking, Jake?" he reprimanded, an edge to his voice that cut deep. "You can't afford to baby that horse. Losing means he's useless, and that means we have to make a choice." The word choice echoed painfully in Jake's mind, leaving him breathless. "But he was trying his best, Dad." The plea tumbled from his lips, raw and desperate. Trying isn't good enough in this game, his father shot back, the finality of his words sealing the air between them. You need to toughen up. These horses are our livelihood, no sympathy. In that moment, something inside Jake shattered, a boy's heart breaking under a father's expectations. He bristled at the thought of Midnight's potential sacrifice, but felt crushed under the fear of disappointing his father again. Tears baffled him, blurring the vibrant memory, leaving only shards of desperation behind. Years passed, yet the shadows of that day continued to loom large over Jake. He often found himself wandering through the vivid memories of his childhood, searching for the light that once shone bright in his heart. Each dawn felt like a chance to reclaim those lost dreams, dreams that had once nurtured hope and compassion, tangled now in the fear of failure. Jake snapped back to the present, a wave of anguish washing over him as Midnight lay weakly, fighting for survival. Clara's voice broke into his thoughts, drawing him back. Jake, we need to focus on what Midnight needs right now. You have to trust me. He looked into her eyes, which mirrored his own determination. I just wish things were different, he whispered, every word carrying the weight of unspoken fears. I don't want to follow the same path my father took. Clara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You're not your father. You love these horses, you care. That's what makes you different. In that moment of connection, Jake's heart cracked open wider. He met Clara's gaze, her eyes alive with the passion of shared dreams. I just feel stuck, torn between the way things are and the way I want them to be. Their conversation lingered in the air as Jake glanced back at Midnight, summoning courage within. The horse represented hope, the promise of redemption, and he refused to let tradition snuff out that flame. But the idea of going against Tommy weighed heavily on him. Despite the animosity he felt towards the tradition of sacrificing horses, he could feel the collective pressure of the town pressing down on his chest. What would it mean if he pushed back? What would his decision signify? What if all this effort was just a fool's errand? Clara's reminder echoed through his thoughts, a life built on compassion, on the will to fight for what was right. Those words lit a flicker of resolve within him, growing stronger as he thought about Midnight's spirit, a spirit that mirrored his own. The next day dawned crisp and clear. Jake found himself standing at the edge of the racetrack, a renewed sense of purpose thrumming through his veins. The town's tradition was thick like molasses, but perhaps it was time for a shift, a new chapter written in the story of their lives. Clara approached him with a smile, garbed in her veterinary scrubs. I was thinking we could try some alternative therapies to help Midnight, something beyond what Tommy would approve. A surge of hope ignited within Jake. You really think it could work? Together we might find a way, she replied, her eyes brimming with steadfast confidence. In that moment, Jake realized the past didn't define him. He could and would pave a different path, a path where compassion reigned, where love overshadowed fear and reminded him of the champion within. All right, Jake said, determination shining in his eyes. Let's save him. And as they walked back towards the stables, Jake felt a sense of freedom sweeping through him, igniting a race for redemption filled with the possibilities of what could be. The weeks unfolded like a delicate tapestry as Jake and Clara dedicated themselves to Midnight's recovery. They explored various therapies, acupuncture, herbal tinctures, and gentle exercises, despite the town's traditions that loomed heavily over them. Each day, hope flickered, but doubt often shadowed Jake's heart. One morning, amidst the golden rays filtering through the barn, Jake stood with a hand resting on Midnight's velvety neck. You know, buddy, everyone thinks we're crazy, he said, brushing his fingers through the horse's mane. But I believe in us. Clara entered, a spark of determination in her eyes. Every great change starts with a step into the unknown, Jake, she encouraged. But deep inside, Jake fought against the fears stemming from his childhood, a past anchored by his father's harsh expectations. Memories of his father's disapproving gaze haunted him. You need to toughen up, Jake. This world doesn't bend for anyone, he would bark, instilling in Jake a view that love was something to be earned. There's pressure everywhere, Clara, Jake finally confessed, his voice cracking. What if we fail him? Everyone will say I'm just like my father. We're not failing him. You're fighting for him, Clara insisted gently. You're guiding him with love, not fear. That's what makes a difference. While Clara's words held weight, Jake often felt the emptiness of loneliness creeping back. The burden of expectation felt heavier each day. But amid that overwhelming fear, he found solace in their collaboration, gaining strength from the bond he was forming with Midnight. As the days passed, setbacks began to surface. One rainy evening, as shadows danced across the barn, Midnight suddenly panicked, thrashing in his stall. "Midnight!" Jake shouted, heart racing. Clara rushed in, urgency mirrored in her gaze. They fought to calm him, but chaos churned around them. Jake felt his chest tighten, already defeated by the weight of perceived failure. "Hold him steady," Clara's voice echoed in the escalating storm of noise. But Jake felt the walls closing in, memories of Town's scorn and his father's disappointment clouding his thoughts. "Stop! I can't handle this," he exclaimed, stepping back as despair washed over him. "Jake, breathe. Focus," Clara urged, stepping into the eye of the storm. "You can't give in. Midnight needs you now more than ever." Jake found himself at a crossroads, battling the shadow of his father's legacy. "I don't want to be like him," he admitted, panic turning to resolve. "You're breaking the cycle," Clara replied firmly. "You have a chance to pave a different way for yourself and for Midnight." The strength in her voice pierced through his fog, illuminating a path ahead. With renewed determination, Jake approached Midnight again, wrapping his arms around the trembling horse. "We're in this together, Midnight. I promise," he whispered, finding comfort in the connection between them. As they worked together, Midnight began to trust again, responding to Jake's care. Each small victory, a nuzzle, a soft whinny, added layers of hope, weaving a new story from their overlapping lives. But the weight of tradition still hovered, relentless. One evening, Tommy confronted Jake outside the barn, judgment etched across his hardened features. "You're going to ruin that horse with this nonsense, Jake. You don't know what you're doing." Jake felt the anger boil within him. "Maybe it's time for a change, Tommy. I'm not here to follow your rules. I'm here to do what's right." Tommy scoffed. "You'll regret this, just like your father." The words stung, but Jake stood taller, the despair that once anchored him breaking free. Steeling himself, Jake declared, "This isn't just about tradition anymore, it's about compassion and love." With that, the voice of his father's past lost its grip, and he stood firm against the shadows that once defined him. As the stars twinkled against the night sky, a sense of freedom enveloped Jake. Together with Clara and Midnight, he had begun to redefine his path. He realized the loneliness rooted in fear could not overshadow the hope woven from trust and connection. In that moment of resolve, the bond between them crystallized, anchoring Jake to a new destiny where love and compassion could flourish, replete with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Weeks morphed into a season, the air warming as spring brushed through the fields. Jake felt the renewed spark in the air, both for himself and for Midnight. The bond they forged started blossoming in ways he'd never imagined. Clara's dedication, coupled with their gradual successes, filled Jake's heart with a burgeoning sense of purpose. One crisp morning, while snugly wrapped in his worn flannel shirt, Jake shared coffee with Clara outside the barn. The sun painted the horizon in hues of gold and lavender, coaxing life back into the world. "You know," Clara began, breaking the comfortable silence, "I think Midnight's ready for something special today." Jake raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth lifting. "What do you mean?" She set down her coffee, excitement dancing in her eyes. "Why don't we take him out for a ride? Just the three of us. It'll be a chance for him to feel free." The idea sparked joy in Jake's chest. "You think he's up for it?" "I believe he is. Let's give him the chance to show us." Clara met his gaze with an unwavering confidence that soothed his lingering doubts. After a few anxious moments, he nodded. "All right, let's do it." As they prepared for the ride, Jake felt the familiar flutter of nerves in his stomach. This was a defining moment, not just for Midnight, but for him. As he brushed Midnight's coat, he recalled the frustration and confusion of past failures. Those shadows tried to creep back into his mind. Yet here, standing with Clara and Midnight, was his opportunity for rebirth, a chance to reclaim ownership of his dreams. "Remember to trust him," Clara advised gently. "He needs to feel that connection between you both." With a steadying breath, Jake mounted Midnight. He felt the horse shift beneath him, his strength palpable. Midnight let out a soft whinny, as if encouraging Jake to embrace his newfound confidence. Clara joined them, setting out on foot alongside them, a constant reminder of the bond and support that bloomed between them. As they rode through the fields, a sense of freedom enveloped them. The gentle rolling hills stretched ahead, bathed in a golden glow, while flowers burst forth in colors Jake had only dreamed of. Midnight trotted steadily, and with each movement, Jake felt more alive. "This is beautiful," he called out to Clara, his voice carrying on the wind. "Just wait until we reach the creek," she shouted back, her laughter like music under the summer sun. Jake tightened his grip as Midnight picked up speed. "Let's go, boy," he urged, and the horse surged forward, responding to the thrill of the open air. As they approached the creek, the sound of flowing water danced in the air, mingling with the soft rustle of wind through the trees. Jake urged Midnight into a gallop, heart soaring. Freedom enveloped him, pushing aside remnants of self-doubt. In that moment, running across the fields, Jake grasped a piece of his true self, a self unchained by past expectations. They reached the bank, where the water sparkled like diamonds in the sun. Jake, dismounting, laughed as he marveled at Midnight's spirited enthusiasm. Clara joined him, dipping her hands into the cool water, splashing joyfully. "He loves this," she exclaimed, watching as Midnight eagerly approached the water. Jake bent beside Clara, and together they gently coaxed Midnight to drink, excitement glowing in their expressions. "This feels like a new start," Jake said softly, his eyes reflecting the joy they were experiencing. "A beautiful new start," Clara replied, determination dancing in her voice. As they settled beside the creek, Clara spoke the words Jake needed to hear more than ever. "You're breaking the cycle, Jake. This bond with Midnight is proof of that. You're giving him a chance, and in turn, you're finding your own path." Jake felt the warmth of her words wrap around him, softening edges he never realized were still there. "I've always felt scared of becoming my father, stuck following in his shadow," he shared, vulnerability tracing through his voice. "But you are not your father. You've chosen love over tradition. That's bravery, real bravery," Clara remarked, her gaze steady and sincere. Jake looked into her eyes, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you. You gave me the courage. Together, remember? This is part of your journey." Their connection deepened, a steadfast commitment to understanding themselves anew in each moment they spent together, emboldened and hopeful. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, they shared stories of their dreams, laughter mingling with the whispers of nature around them. Midnight turned his head, nudging Jake for attention, and he laughed. "All right, buddy, let's take you back," he said softly, stroking the horse's mane. As they mounted Midnight once more and started the journey home, Jake felt a renewed sense of self wash over him. He had woven a tapestry of connection and fulfillment, unseen threads that ran deep with friendship, trust, and love. The return trip felt lighter, the weight of tradition bending but never breaking. He no longer felt the pressure of expectation. He was forging a new legacy not grounded in fear, but centered around love. Later that evening, as twilight descended and the stars emerged, Jake laid in his bedroom staring at the ceiling, a smile curling on his lips. He had fought against the waves of doubt, choosing not only compassion but also a newfound sense of belonging, both to Midnight and to Clara. In that stillness, a song began to form in Jake's mind, a melody that wrapped around his heart, a promise of renewal, a celebration of the journey they were on. The notes washed over him like the gentle breeze, and in that moment, Jake understood with certainty. He was rewriting his story page by page. Tomorrow would come, but for now, under the peaceful blanket of stars, Jake found peace in knowing he was not just fighting for Midnight, but also for himself, and he was ready for the next chapter, whatever it might hold. As time danced forward, the connection between Jake, Clara, and Midnight blossomed amid the warm embrace of spring. Each day brought progress, and the vibrancy of their shared purpose felt electrifying. Yet beneath the surface of newfound hope, undercurrents of despair loomed, unseen yet potent. One afternoon, Jake found himself working alone in the barn, the gentle clatter of hooves on the wooden floor providing a comforting rhythm. Clara had stepped away for a veterinary conference, leaving Jake in charge of Midnight's therapy. As he mixed the herbal remedies, a familiar unease whispered in the air, prodding at his thoughts. Just then, Tommy strolled into the barn, all bravado and arrogance. "Look who's playing doctor now," he sneered, leaning against the stable door. "What are you hoping to achieve, Jake? Fluffing up that horse's ego? You're wasting your time." Jake's defenses rose immediately, heart pounding. "Midnight is healing. You wouldn't understand." Tommy laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Healing? Nice words, but horses don't need pampering. They need to be toughened up." You're soft like your father. No wonder he never thought much of you. Fury surged through Jake, igniting a fire he had fought to extinguish. Stop, you don't get to talk about my father. I'm not him. I'm doing what's right. Something you wouldn't know anything about. Right or wrong, you're making a fool of yourself, Tommy replied, stepping closer. This town has a way of dealing with horses like Midnight. Tradition means something. Do you want to end up like your old man? The hurtful words struck deep, reverberating in Jake's mind long after Tommy strolled away, leaving behind a thick cloud of doubt. As the sun began to set, shadows encroached upon the barn, mirroring the darkness creeping into Jake's heart. When Clara returned that evening, she sensed the disturbance in his spirit. What happened? Clara asked, her voice calm yet concerned. Tommy stopped by. He's relentless. He tried to get under my skin, to tell me I'm not enough, just like my father, Jake confessed, hunching his shoulders as anger turned to pain. Jake, don't let him get to you. You know who you are, Clara urged, placing a comforting hand on his arm. Your journey is about breaking free from those voices. I thought I was, but what if I'm just fooling myself? What if he's right? Jake's honesty cut through the night air, the vulnerability piercing his heart. Clara's eyes softened. You're stronger than all of that. Look at all you've achieved with Midnight. You've transformed him and yourself. That's what counts. You're not your father, and you're not Tommy. You're you. Yet deep in the recesses of Jake's heart, uncertainty churned. Accepting Clara's words took courageous conviction. That night, as sleep eluded him, he braved the darkness, his mind spiraling into the past, where shadows clung and whispered tales of failure. Weeks dragged on, and Jake's spirit dimmed amid the unrelenting pressure. The joy he once felt during training waned, overshadowed by Tommy's words and his own insecurity. He began doubting whether Midnight could ever compete, questioning every positive step they had made. Then one fateful morning, the crisis arrived. Clara joined him as planned for the day's workout, her energy bright. But as she entered the barn, her expression shifted, pouring concern over her features. Jake, we need to talk about Midnight. What is it? He asked, heart plummeting. I noticed he's been moving a bit stiffly. I think he might be in pain, she cautioned, a frown deepening her brow. What are you saying? Panic surged, echoing through him. I think we should get him checked by a specialist, Clara suggested. We've made progress, but pain can set him back, and we need the right diagnosis. But we can't. We're so close to something special here, Jake snapped, desperation bubbling up. Clara met his aggression with compassion. I know, Jake, but we can't ignore it. What if it's worse than we think? It's about his well-being above all else. Jake turned away, frustration coursing through him like a raging river. He's been doing great. We can't just give up now. I can't let him down. I can't let you down. Howls of fear mingled with fierce determination clawed within him. Jake, Clara's voice softened. This isn't giving up, it's caring. You have to put Midnight first. You fought so hard for him. Don't let pride get in the way of doing what's best for him. Jake looked away, battling the tumult of conflicting emotions. Fear spread its cold fingers deep in his chest. What if the diagnosis is bad? What if this all ends? He felt ground beneath him slip away, uncertainty swallowing him whole. Then we face it together, Clara replied, unwavering. Just like we faced everything else. In silence, Jake took a long, shaky breath, fighting against the tide of despair. He knew he didn't want to lose Midnight. Fine, he relented. Let's do it. The drive to the specialist was a myriad of emotions, hope woven with dread. Jake wrestled with the worst-case scenarios, but Clara's presence steadied him. Remember, no matter what happens, she said softly, you're not alone. The veterinarian examined Midnight, his expressions growing serious. After a series of x-rays, the diagnosis came through. A minor injury, but one that required months of rehabilitation. The initial wave of relief was quickly overshadowed by anxiety. The path to recovery felt daunting. It's manageable, but it'll take time, the veterinarian advised. You'll have to be patient. Patience. The word felt foreign and heavy on Jake's heart. As they left the clinic, he could sense Clara's support, yet felt dejected at the thought of a lengthy recovery. What if this ends all the progress we've made? He asked, voice small. Clara seized his hand, grounding him. Every setback is just a reminder of how far we've come. This is not the end, Jake. We'll work through it. Together. But what if I won't be enough? What if I fail him? Jake's fears curled back, persistent like winter's chill. "You are enough," she said firmly, evidenced by the light that flickered in her eyes. "You've already faced what you feared the most and come out stronger. Let's apply that same courage here." As they drove past the fading sunset, Jake felt the weight of expectations settle on his shoulders. Knowing he had to confront these emotions was a catalyst, compelling him to find strength within. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he realized now that it was truly worth fighting for Midnight, for Clara, and ultimately for himself. In that moment, with Clara's hand in his, Jake resolved to stand strong, not to succumb to fear, but to embrace the challenge ahead. Acceptance flowed through him as he finally understood. Setbacks were not his story's conclusion, but merely a new chapter. Tomorrow would come, and with each sunrise would begin another opportunity to choose love and compassion, renewing his commitment to Midnight and rewriting his legacy for himself. As spring wore on, the days became longer, filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers and the soft sounds of nature. Jake found solace in Midnight's steady presence, fully embracing the journey of rehabilitation they were taking together. Each day in the barn felt like a step deeper into a new rhythm, a routine where hope intertwined with uncertainty. However, the looming town rodeo hung heavy over Jake's heart, like a storm cloud threatening rain. Clara often caught him staring off into the distance, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she would ask, her concern evident as she nudged him gently from his reverie. "The rodeo is coming," Jake replied hesitantly, the weight of his words almost palpable. "What if Midnight isn't ready? What if I fail him?" Clara stepped closer, her voice steady. "Jake, it's not just about the rodeo or trying to impress anyone. It's about the bond you and Midnight have formed. Trust that bond." "I know," he sighed, uncertainty gnawing at his resolve. "But I feel the pressure. What if all this progress we've made is for nothing?" Clara placed her hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone in this. You've been through so much already. Just take it one step at a time." As the days passed, Jake observed that each training session revealed glimpses of Midnight's emerging strength and grace. Slowly, the splint was removed, and he began trotting smoothly across the barn's yard. The thrill that coursed through Jake during these moments reignited a fire in his spirit, yet shadows of doubt still flickered at the edges of his mind. Amid this upheaval, one afternoon, Clara entered the barn with boundless energy. "I think today might be the day to really test him," she declared, her excitement infectious. "Are we sure about this?" Jake hesitated, intuition flaring within him. "What if he's not ready yet? Let's start slow. We'll see how he responds," Clara insisted. Her determination sparked a flicker of courage in Jake. Mounting Midnight, Jake felt the warmth of freedom wash over him as they ventured into the open meadow. The sun hung high, casting a golden glow that ignited every blade of grass, momentarily blinding Jake to his own anxieties. He urged Midnight into a gentle trot, laughter bubbling up as joy unfolded. It felt right. But suddenly, a loud crack broke through the tranquil afternoon. A deer darted from the bushes, startling Midnight. The horse reared, the trained response of fear surging through him and triggering a storm of panic deep within Jake. "Whoa, Midnight! Easy!" Jake shouted, gripping the reins tightly. "Jake, breathe! You need to calm him down," Clara's voice echoed, urging him to regain control. He could feel Midnight's heart pounding beneath him. In that split second, Jake remembered the quiet afternoons spent together, the trust they had built through their struggles. He leaned down, whispering softly, "It's okay, boy, I'm right here." Slowly, he relaxed his grip, allowing his body to sync with Midnight's rhythm. The chaos melted away as he focused solely on the bond they shared. Gradually, Midnight calmed under his gentle touch, breathing evening out as he began to respond to Jake's commands once again. When they returned to the barn, adrenaline coursing through them, Jake felt a rush of emotions, relief, exhilaration, but also the lingering taste of fear. Clara met him with wide eyes, her voice filled with pride. "How did it feel?" "It was intense, but I think we're okay," Jake replied, still processing the ride. As days continued to blur, Jake continued to evaluate Midnight's progress. They shared laughter in moments of triumph, but also faced the bitterness of fear lurking in every decision. With the rodeo just around the corner, he couldn't shake the feeling that they might not be ready. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted one evening, staring at the stars that blanketed the night sky. Clara took his hand. "You already are. Look how far you've come. But what if we fail? What if I let him down? The fear crept in again, heavier than before. Everyone faces uncertainty, Jake. What matters is how you respond to it. It's okay to be scared, but don't let that fear define you, Clara reassured him. As the date of the rodeo approached, Jake's heart raced with anticipation and dread. He spent sleepless nights weighing his decision. Should he enter Midnight in the competition, or pull back, keep him safe, and protect their bond from the potential fallouts of failure? That morning, as dawn broke, casting soft hues over the land, Jake made his way to Midnight, heart pounding with intention. If they were to face the challenges ahead, it had to be hand in hand, trusting the journey they had forged together. He gently brushed Midnight's side, feeling the warmth beneath his fingers. "We can do this," he whispered, conviction surging within him. "I will not let fear control us." As he prepared for the day, Jake reflected on the countless moments leading to this point, the struggles, the triumphs, and the unbreakable bond that had formed between horse and rider. This rodeo would not just be a test of skill, it would be a celebration of everything they had overcome and achieved together. With renewed determination, Jake stood tall, ready to embrace the journey before them. Whatever the outcome, he vowed to face it with the courage that had propelled him this far. Now more than ever, he understood that greatness lay not solely in victories, but also in the willingness to confront challenges with an open heart. Together, they would charge forward into whatever awaited them, weaving their story one fearless step at a time. The day of the rodeo arrived, painted with hues of orange and gold, as the sun broke through the horizon. Excitement thrummed in the air, an electric mix of sounds and scents, the laughter of children, the low murmur of conversations, and the smell of hay mingling with barbecue smoke. Jake felt a flutter of nerves blended with resolve as he approached the arena, Clara at his side. "You've got this," Clara said, her voice cutting through his anxious thoughts as they made their way to check in. Jake could sense the crowd's energy, a sea of eager faces that fueled both his anticipation and apprehension. Spotting Midnight in the stable, his coat shining like polished mahogany, brought a swell of pride. "Are you ready for this, buddy?" Jake murmured, ruffling Midnight's mane. Clara watched, pride evident in her eyes. As he saddled Midnight, Jake hoped to quiet the whirlwind of doubts that threatened to resurface. "It's just you and me," he whispered, letting trust and determination guide him. The horse's rhythmic breathing soothed his racing heart. Once in the warm-up area, the noise of the crowd faded into the background, replaced by the steady thump of Midnight's hoofbeats. Every trot felt right, a whispered reassurance that they had prepared. Clara cheered him on, her faith in him a calming presence that melted the weight of his apprehensions. When it was time for Jake and Midnight to enter the arena, adrenaline surged through him. The crowd roared, a tidal wave of sound that washed over them. Jake felt exhilarated, ready to embrace this moment that represented their journey and growth. As the announcer called his name, Jake took a deep breath, gripping Midnight's reins firmly. The course woven with jumps and barrels lay before him, each obstacle a testament to their struggles and victories. "Let's show them what we've got," he said, determination igniting within. The first jump approached, and it loomed larger than life. "Together!" he urged Midnight, and with a powerful leap, they flew over the barrier, hitting the ground with a fluid grace. Cheers erupted from the crowd, and a smile broke through Jake's concentrated facade. Every maneuver felt like a dance. Each obstacle they faced a celebration of their partnership, trust and strength blending seamlessly. With every jump and turn, Jake felt the weight of his fears lift, replaced by pure joy and exhilaration. The crowd's applause fueled him further, transforming his apprehension into confidence. As they crossed the finish line, Jake's heart raced, not just from the thrill, but from the overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Clara leaped forward as they exited the arena, her joy radiant. "You did it! You both did amazing!" Her voice rang out, making Jake's heart swell. "We did it together," he replied breathlessly, patting Midnight affectionately. In that moment, he recognized the bond they had forged was the true victory, beyond any title or trophy. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with rich purples and reds, Jake reflected on the day. The rodeo had been a test of more than skill. It embodied everything he and Midnight had overcome: fear, doubt, and the power of unwavering support. Standing shoulder to shoulder with Clara, They watched the horizon together. "I'm so proud of you, Jake. You really showed how far you've come," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Your belief in us made all the difference," Jake replied, gratitude filling every word. He traced the outline of Midnight's silhouette against the fading light, grateful for the journey they had shared. For Jake, today marked not a conclusion, but a new beginning. The lessons learned would stay with him, shaping how he faced future challenges. With Clara and Midnight by his side, he was ready to embrace whatever came next, filling each new chapter with courage, compassion, and unwavering trust. In that tranquil evening light, Jake found peace in the understanding that they would always charge forward together, weaving their unique story, one fearless step at a time.